Anita, how's your mental health?
Questionable at all times. You know this.
Yeah, how's the mental health of your children?
Also a little bit tricky. Can I tell you my experience in trying to find therapists for myself and my kids, Mel?
Yes, please.
Okay, this is how it goes. You ask around your friends and your family for a referral for somebody who's nearby. You finally find somebody who sounds like they might work for your family. You give them a call and you find out that A, they're not accepting new patients, or B, they have a huge wait list. So you start over again and you ask people if they know anybody who would be a good therapist and a good fit. Finally, you find one, you go and you meet with them and you figure out that you don't actually like them that much. But it's been so much work to find somebody who you can go to in your area that you're kind of stuck with them. Well, do you have any ideas for how to get around this?
I do, because guess what? I've actually had some therapists that I have found on my own, which involves what you're saying. Sometimes I remember one time I was like 3 hours in the bathtub on my phone looking through websites. I was such a prune at the end. But I have also had the experience with working with BetterHelp. And it was like, I don't want to say too good to be true, but because it is true, but it's like amazing because I was matched with my therapist within 24 hours.
And you didn't have to go through all of that other ridiculous process of trying to find somebody. And here's the cool thing too, is if that person didn't work out for you, you can just switch and say, and it's not like you're committing to another years long search for somebody who you're going to jive with.
It's true. And I lucked out, or maybe just BetterHelp is really good at matching people together because I never had to change my therapist. I loved her. Perfect fit for me. And I know that some of our friends have used BetterHelp and they've had to change therapists, and boom, same day, you can change.
Easy peasy.
You can ghost your therapist. Get a new one.
I love this idea. BetterHelp is one of our sponsors. If you use our promo code trybetterhelp.com/WWDN, you get 10% off your first month. And we totally recommend it.
Yes. Get some therapy. That's trybetterhelp.com/WWDN. Okay. Anita.
Hi, Mel.
You're in my house.
That makes it sound like I'm an intruder.
I know.
I did let myself in, so
You guys, it's the new year, and actually, we're recording from the past, but it's our present right now, and you're going to get this in the future because Anita is going.
I'm going on an adventure. We're going on a cruise, me and the kids. Just us.
Was that your Christmas present to them?
Yeah, yes, it was. And it's going to be fine.
Yeah, good luck. You'll have to tell us how it goes when you get back.
Yeah, I will.
Well, and I'm sure that on your Instagram you're going to...
No, because we have no internet.
Oh.
Unless I pay $1 million for it.
We'll have a good time.
I will. You won't even know anything about me for the next 10 days.
Wow. Okay.
Eek.
Well, let's just catch everybody up. This is the first episode of the new year, so that means that we have survived Christmas and the new year.
Yeah.
How did your Christmas go?
Christmas was fine. It's just busy and crazy and lots of work, and it's tiring, but it's definitely less emotional than it used to be, if that makes sense. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, we had a good Christmas. I would say overall it was good. I tried to not get my kids any presents at all. I failed because we were doing, the trip, and they still came home with way too much crap from all of the other places, but they were happy, so it's good.
Nice. I kind of just blanked out all the holidays and sat there or skied or did other things, so it was good. A good coping mechanism, I guess.
Cool.
We still actually haven't done Christmas.
Oh, you haven't?
No, our tree's still up and there's presents still there. Because,
yeah.
This is the first one without my dad.
I know. And actually, today is the day that your dad had his accident last year. So, today is a big day.
Yeah, we're recording this on January 1st, even though this will come out January 9th.
Don't think too much about it. And in 2 days will be Jason's death anniversary.
Oh, man.
So, there's a lot happening right now.
Wow, what a year.
I think a lot of people say the same thing, probably also. I'm wondering how everybody else has made it through the holidays and how it went.
Yeah. Are you okay? Are you not okay? Probably both.
We've had lots of people talk about their feelings about both Christmas and entering the new year. The new year is kind of messes with your mind because it's like this new beginning, this new birth, and it's kind of exciting in a way, but at the same time you feel like this is a year, like I feel like this is a year that I will exist that Jason does not exist in. And that kind of feels awful in a way. So it's like, I don't want to be in this year either. I only want to be in the years in which he also exists. So how can I continue to move on, even though like you take the memories and you take the things that you had together, but still none of those memories will be from the current year.
And I don't think of any of that because everything's a big blob.
Yeah.
And Scott has been dead 5 years and we were married 2 years and I don't even know how to think about it. So there you go.
Well, do you feel like time and space have ceased to exist for you?
Yeah.
Like there's no differentiation between what days or, I think that might be even more pronounced for you because you don't have kids and your job is not like a Monday through Friday, 9 to 5.
Yeah.
So like, how do you keep track of what is what?
I don't.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, something is closed. It must be a holiday or a weekend.
You know what else isn't even helping you anymore?
What?
Remember when TV shows used to be on a specific day?
Yes.
So you could be like, it's Tuesday because Family Matters is on.
On TGIF?
Okay. Friday. I meant, yeah.
Boy Meets World.
You don't even have that anymore to keep you, like, sane.
Mm-mm. Well, today I did a ritual. I wrote down a lot of the things from the year 2022 that I want to release, and I burned them in a pan on the front porch, and it went up in smoke. And here's hoping to a better 2023.
Yeah, let's do it, shall we?
Ugh. Yeah, I mean, whatever. Still here.
You guys, if you want to check in with us in the Widow Wives Club, come join us. It's our private Facebook group. Just make sure you answer all of our questions. We're growing, and it's a really amazing group, and we welcome you. Anybody who has lost their partner is welcome to be in that group, and we have a broad definition of romantic partner. You don't have to have been married.
Yeah. You can be not married with the dead person.
There was going to be more that came out of my mouth.
Okay. So that was it. Okay. Well, hopefully you guys get it by now. You know what it is. If you're new to the podcast, go to Facebook, type in the Widow Wives Club. That's ours. Right? Isn't there another one?
There is another one. Don't get tricked. It's the Widow We Do Now Widow Wives Club.
Yeah, the one with a long name.
Yeah. If you want to keep the podcast going, check out our Patreon. Patreon is a platform that allows listeners to support their favorite content creators, and it's what allows us to keep this work going.
Yes, and if you decide to join Patreon, one of the benefits is you get a shout-out in episode.
All right, here we go. We're going to start with our secret dead husband, and to her we say,
row, row, row your boat gently down the widow.
I was trying to think of the New Year's song. What is that one?
Oh, I don't.
May
what are you
widowed acquaintance be forgotten. No, we don't want that.
Okay, well, that was good enough.
Okay,
Constance Dahlbeck.
David Kelly.
Dawn Satterwhite.
Emily Wesenberg.
Evelyn Flores.
Gail Bell.
Heather Mullins.
Ivan the Misner. Congratulations.
On the baby. Kat.
Krista Waite.
Maya Glasser.
Neil Hooper.
Becky Ziba.
Sam Finlayson.
The Winehouse.
Amber Alanez Vela.
Amy Hartman Martell.
Amy Neal.
Ashley Hahn.
Barbara Schneeberger.
Brandy Younger.
Brittany Pedro.
Chris Steffen.
Cindy Wilkerson.
Danielle Catterberg.
Debbie Downer.
No.
Not a Debbie Downer.
Oh, she's definitely not.
Sorry.
Dennis Brazo.
Jean Marie Massey.
J2.
Jenny Taylor.
Jennifer Beal.
Jennifer Brown.
Jenny Wang.
Jesse Johnson.
Carol Schultz.
Laura Aguirre Penner.
Lauren Old.
Lisa Hardman Powell.
Lou Clausen.
Marie Hoffman.
Mary Catherine Anderson.
Meg Murto.
Patricia Weiss.
Rachel Barbosa.
Sarah Morris.
Simone Fu.
Sunshine Haven.
Sylvia Shore.
My mom. Amy Burke.
Ann Drennan.
Anna Tracy.
Audrey Henniger.
Christina Scambato.
Christine Anderson.
Cindy Raynaud.
Connie Remich.
Don Barber.
Debbie Fells.
Deborah Westwood.
Diana Becker.
Doris Rachel.
Eileen Stevens Dem.
Emily Toledo.
Eric Vandermeulen.
Erin Posik.
Gabe Lozano.
Gia Benoit.
Gina Haas.
Ian Sini.
Ileana Bell.
Jackie Coyle.
Oh, she told us how to say it.
Jan Colarusso Seeley.
Jane.
A secret patron.
Jennifer Davis.
Jenny Armstrong.
Jenny Barrow.
Jenny Dippold,
Jocelyn Milo,
Johnny Walker,
Judy Malkin,
Julie Stevenson,
Karen Ochoa,
Karina Jacobo,
Kathy Murray,
Katie Getz,
Katie Radcliffe,
Kara Scara,
Kevin Ferry,
Chris Morgan,
Laura Keeley,
Lindsay Kanopka,
Happy New Year, Marjorie Lewis,
Marianne Hammond,
Marianne McDonald,
Mary McGowan,
Melissa Bowers,
Melissa Hancock,
Naomi Brown,
Rachel with no last name,
whoa, Rebecca Olemaker,
Robin Flam,
Stacy Sayward,
Tammy Terravis,
Tara Wallace,
Trenton Thompson,
Val Packers, trying to save money on our groceries this year.
Oh, really? Oh, nice job, Val. And New Year's baby Wendy.
Aww. Thank you so much to everybody who supports us on Patreon. We really, really couldn't do this without you. So if you want to join our Patreon, go to patreon.com/WWDN.
If you do not want to do that, please go to buymeacoffee.com/widowwedonoww and buy us tacos.
Yeah.
Or
if you don't want to do either of those things or don't have any money, which is fine, just give us a nice rating and review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. It really helps people to find us when they need us.
Or share an episode if you want.
Oh, good idea.
Yeah. Okay, so this episode coming up, this is an update episode of several guests from times past. Now, because we're all widows, it takes a while to collect information or to remember to send things in. And so I think this was supposed to come out in the summer, but you know what? Between all of us widows, it just is coming out now. So we hope that you enjoy this and want to let everyone know that this podcast is sponsored by the Misner Family Foundation in memory of Elisabeth Misner.
Thank you. Our first update is from Ashley Garbe Smith. She was one of our earlier episodes at episode 29. If you remember, Ashley's husband, Wyatt, died in a helicopter crash when they were really young. So she's been a widow for quite a while.
Yes, she has some great things to say, so we hope you enjoy.
Sometimes we assume that unless we had a huge life insurance payout, we don't really need to know anything about investments or even finances. But guess what? A little knowledge of finances is critical for all of us. Maybe your partner was in charge of that stuff, and now you find yourself making all the decisions. Maybe you're mad about that. Maybe I am. Nicole from the He's Gone But the Money's Not podcast is here to help. She tackles financial literacy by telling the stories of women and widows and finance experts and shares the lessons they've learned as certified financial planners. Whether you know a lot and feel confident in your financial decisions or feel unsure about all of that stuff, there is more to learn. Listen and subscribe to the He's Gone But the Money's Not podcast on all podcast platforms. This ad was paid for by Rockhouse Financial, an SEC registered investment advisor.
Hi, Anita and Mel. This is Ashley Garbe Smith. I was a guest on your podcast back in 2020, and my story is a little different from some of the other guests because I lost my husband in a helicopter accident back in 2004. So honestly, not a lot has changed in the last 2 years for me when it comes to my experience with grief and losing my husband. But that's not to say that 18 years later, I don't still feel the feels of grief and loss. 18 years later, I still think about Wyatt. He's my first husband, every single day. There are still things that I miss about him and little reminders that I feel like the universe sends me every once in a while. Since speaking with you, I left my corporate law firm job and I started my own law firm. And it was honestly the best decision I ever made, even though I made it during the pandemic. I think losing a spouse teaches us that life is short. And if we have the desire to do something like owning or starting our own business, we need to jump and do it. One piece of advice that my current self, 18 years out, would give to my early grief self is to let go of anyone else's expectations of me. You didn't write the thank you cards, let it go. You didn't respond to a friend's good news the way she wanted you to, let it go. You didn't call someone back and they got mad, let it go. Because here's what I know, 18 years later, those expectations won't matter. The people who really love you will still love you. And if they hold on to your failure to meet their expectations, that is on them. It is not on you. So being a widow at an early age taught me compassion and grace for others. If you are early on in your grief process, hold on to the fact that your experience is going to help so many others down the road. I'm so much more patient and understanding of people in general than I was before becoming a widow. So thank you for letting me share my update. I love the community you women have created and know you're helping so many people deal with their own grief. Love you. Bye.
Thanks, Ashley. Okay, our next update is from Erin, who is from the land down under, and we got to meet Erin.
We got to spend a lot of time with Erin. She was our like
driving person,
tour guide, tender, minder, all of those things all in one.
Skate mom, the best. Yes, she even visited the baby Joeys with us.
Yes. So Erin was episode 51, and let's hear a little bit about her update, shall we?
Let's do it.
So it'll be 4 years in December since Moose died. How am I coping now? Well, I think this year feels harder. I guess habits that settled in when we were just literally trying to survive are now embedded. Some of those are not so good, so trying to change them has been a bit difficult. I think I've got lots of mum guilt for things I see the family failing at, things that I don't think I've done well through this, which is a bit tough. Yeah, it doesn't get easier. I think you just have different things to cope with and different things to deal with. Have I achieved anything amazing since we last talked? I've still got my job. I think that's pretty amazing. The grief brain, the grief fog is still very real. Somehow I feel that it's heavier this year for some reason, and I don't know whether that's because I've moved from surviving to coming back to living and almost thriving. So, but yeah, that grief fog is a bit tough. Support systems, yep. After that first 12 months, they disappear. But I guess now I just have a few key people who will, come if I call them. Again, still not good at asking for help. So the place has to be falling down around me before I do ask for some help. But I do have a few key people that I can contact, but definitely the huge support that we had originally, that's just vanished. Dating, yes, I have waded into the dating pool. It's quite difficult because I guess, I met Moose when I was 19, so I was with him for 23 years of my life. Dating as a 18, 19-year-old is very different as dating as someone in your 40s. I guess, whoever I find has to be someone super special. They're not dealing with an ex in my life. They're dealing with my husband who died. So, there's still photos in our house. We still talk about him. So essentially, it's almost like a 3-person relationship. He still exists. So, whoever that person is has to be able to handle that and cope with that. I actually have met someone special, but it is really hard. I'm so guarded because I don't want to lose anyone again and be in that position. So, it's quite private at the moment, but yeah, I do have met someone, but also it's quite difficult because my kids are not accepting of that fact. So, trying to A, date in your 40s, B, trying to do it around your kids that are not happy, yeah, and everyone at this age has got baggage. So it's been there's been some laughs, there's been some what the fuck moments. What can I say that? But yeah, definitely it's been interesting. So yeah, and what piece of advice could I give to my early grief self? You are never going to be the same person again. I think, I had this epiphany at Camp Widow Australia when I was sitting in on one of the sessions, and I suddenly sat there and went, oh my goodness, that's right. I'm never going to be the Erin from before December 2018. It's taken me this long to realise that. I just thought maybe things would get better and I would get my memory back. But no, that grief brain is just not helping me there. But yeah, I think that's a big thing. As it suddenly just dawned on me, I'm never going to be the person I was before, and I guess that's where this year has kind of been a revitalizing year. I've been starting to get back out there. I've been going out. I've just not been a couch potato. I've been trying to live again. And now that the world's opening back up, I can start traveling again, which is a massive love of mine. So I'm really looking forward to be able to do that and hopefully meet some of our fellow Widow We Do Now crew from around the world. A big life change for us was that my family sold their farm. So that means no more baby Joeys. Sorry, Mel. Yeah, so that's where I'm at. Thanks, guys.
Okay, thanks, Erin. It's okay that you don't have the baby Joeys anymore because you know what? You took me to see them.
Even better.
Thank you. Okay, next we have Christine Anderson. Now, Christine has 3 boys. Mm-hmm. She has a lot going on. She's an advocate for many, many things. And she is episode 55 if you would like to go back and re-listen to her episode. But we love Christine. She's such a nice lady.
And she just got a brand new, really fancy job. So that's not in her update, but that just barely happened.
Okay. So we'll just let you hear from Christine herself. Here you go.
Hello, widow friends. At the time this airs, it will be 5 years, May 2017, since my heart shattered into a billion pieces, and I've been trying to put my heart back together ever since. You may recall I have 3 boys, one about to turn 17. Oh my goodness, a 12-year-old and an 11-year-old. So how am I coping now? And is grief more manageable? I would say I'm not sobbing or bursting into tears every day. It doesn't happen as often, and when it does, it is weeping. I just let the tears stream down my cheeks and feel all the feels, and that seems to help. I'm trying to experience the grief in the moment it happens, trying to acknowledge it, and then the moments seem a bit more manageable. I would say that it is more familiar. I know what it feels like. I know what this looks like every day. It's still really, really wrong that my person isn't here, but it's a familiar feeling. I'm not sure else how to label the situation, just that it's familiar. So when something happens like driving by a restaurant and perhaps thinking of our life, it's not so much a trigger, rather a longing for what my life was. I really miss that life, and changing how I think about my life as longing rather than a trigger has helped. But I really miss my life before. I think there are a few things that have made life easier or a little bit more difficult. So because of the familiarity and some idea of what to expect, that makes it a bit easier. The difficulty now is that it has been long enough that people have stopped saying Brian's name. Some people have met me without any context or knowledge of who Brian is, and that is so heartbreaking. They are wonderful people, and some I never would have met had Brian not died, and that is the irony and heartbreak of it all. As far as any big major changes or moves or anything in my life, I haven't had any big life changes. I certainly had a lot during the first years that included a major house remodel and reconstruction, and I ventured out by myself traveling with the boys. Then the pandemic squashed that a bit. I have not waded into the dating pool. I don't have intentions to do so, despite the fact that my siblings now tease me and joke that we should start a profile. That joke really isn't very funny though, even though I know they mean well. Which brings me to my support system. I think people generally care and would like to see me move on or have something different, and think perhaps getting remarried will solve everything. Bless them, but for me that really doesn't fix anything. I have had some people drift out of support just because life gets busy, and at 5 years, no one brings a casserole or dinner anymore. I think I make it look really, really easy, but I have them fooled. I have some really dear friends who have had a front seat row to all the grief, all the trauma, and really tender experiences, and they continue to support me. I have siblings, and that's helpful too. My mom is a significant help. My dad passed away last year, and that has been significant knowing my husband and dad, my favorite guys, aren't around. And now my mom has joined the Widow Club and said to me, "This is how you have been feeling? I'm so sorry. I had no idea." So she's helped me a lot with my boys and continues to help me. And while I'm still alive, she keeps telling me, "I'm still alive. Let me help you." Okay. And I just love my mom for her willingness to do that. As far as any accomplishment, that is a good question. I mentioned in the podcast previously that service helps me. I recently did a project to assist refugee moms for Mother's Day. You may recall that Brian had a heart attack on Mother's Day, and then later we removed him from life support. I decided to enlist others to donate to a refugee project in my neighborhood. The local organization was collecting items for care packages, so I had friends donate the items. They sent me Venmo contributions. It felt really good to serve again. Felt good to my soul. I had a little moment at the refugee center, but again, it was good for the soul. Also, Brian's favorite cause was celebrating birth moms. So I made a donation in his honor to a local support group for Mother's Day in support of birth moms this year. I am very proud that I have traveled with my boys. We took a trip recently for spring break. We flew to Arizona to see friends and stay in a resort. This was big for me because it took a lot of coordination. And in addition to my oldest son having autism, he now has been diagnosed with type 1 diabetes. So this was our first trip for all the diabetes and traveling and getting through airport security. It was so much planning to help the boys. The airport also has a new terminal, and that was a little stinging to the heart because Brian worked for the airlines. I would have loved to have had a conversation with him about the terminal, the processes he probably would have helped develop as a computer programmer, the ticketless travel enhancements, and he didn't have any part of that. And I think the commentary to just talk to him about that would have been so great. My boys have significant disabilities, and the struggle was an ordeal flying home. And even my one child who doesn't struggle nearly as much had an anxiety meltdown, and I found myself by myself with 3 boys having meltdowns, and that was a struggle and really difficult for me to think that I was doing this by myself. But somehow we made it home, and the gate agents and flight attendants were so very kind. I have another trip planned, and hopefully the next trip the boys and I will adapt better, and they'll know a little bit more what to expect again. We need to do these trips. I need to do these trips because I want to live and feel joy again. Brian would really want that. So I think joy is creeping in just a little bit more. If I could give myself some advice to the early days of grief, I would say go ahead and set those boundaries. It is going well, and you and the boys are healthier for these boundaries, and it's making healing so much better. In fact, set the boundaries and do it as soon as possible. Don't wait. I'd also tell myself to continue to go to therapy. It's worth it, and continue to get a massage. There are moments of joy. The memories of Brian do not fade. In fact, they are more intense. And remember that you can make new memories with Brian as you go forward. I just am so glad I found the podcast and have met amazing widows. In fact, at one widow soiree we had recently, a friend said, I finally heard your voice because we have sent messages and hadn't met in person until recently. So that was kind of funny. I love this community and all the support.
Thanks, Christine. That's awesome. Thank you so much for updating us. Okay, our next update is from episode 56, and this is Lauren Lentz.
If you remember, her husband died by getting hit on his bike by a car.
She had a really young child at the time, so let's hear about how she's making her way through the world now.
How am I coping now? It will be 3 years come November, and I do feel that on most days the grief has gotten much lighter and more manageable. And I will say that first year I would have never even thought those words would ever come out of my mouth. There is hope in grief, inside of grief, and when you are newly widowed and you feel helpless, hopeless, and just all-consuming despair, just know that there are people, widowers that are ahead of you who have allowed time to help mend their broken heart. And it's never going to be the same, but it definitely gets lighter. It gets more manageable. What has gotten harder for me, I think, is distance from Kevin's death and seeing memories be lost on my son, because when he was killed, Lawson, my son, was only 14 months old. And so the memories that he had then, he doesn't have now. And he does say that he remembers certain things, but I think that's more from us sharing stories and from us showing him videos and pictures. So that is really hard. What's gotten easier, I think, is taking on the role of a solo parent. When you are thrust into that role in the beginning, it feels like you're never going to be able to wrap your mind around it. And I mean, I still have very hard times and days, but that's definitely gotten easier as time has moved forward. But I think it will always be hard for me to not have Kevin here in the role of father figure, because it always breaks my heart that Lawson has lost out on that relationship with him, and that Kevin has lost out on the relationship of being a father, because that's really all he wanted to be. Have I made big life changes? Yes. I sold our home over a year ago and just recently moved into a new home. I stopped being a teacher and became an assistant principal. I was getting my master's in administration when Kevin was killed, and so I moved forward with that. Have I waded into the dating pool? Yes, I have. I have had a boyfriend for about 10 months now, and that's a whole other story, but it's going well, but it is not going without its challenges and struggles. And I think I'm new to this widow thing, and he is new to being a divorced father of two and blending families and coming from different places in our lives and different relationships and all sorts of things has definitely created bumps in the road, but we're trying our best to move forward and learn about each other and give each other grace and find space for this new chapter. Have I accomplished anything amazing? I don't think so. I don't know. I mean, again, getting into administration, new job, new house, I guess I would say those are all amazing things. Taking care of this almost 4-year-old now, all of that, definitely. Has my support system changed? It has definitely evolved. I think that there are a lot of people who remained consistent over the last 3 years. There are some people that have come back into my lives that I wasn't expecting. There's been a lot of tears and apologies in the last, I would say, year and a half, for people not really knowing how to sit with me in my grief and how to handle their own grief. So that's been great. I also think that I've chosen to allow people to fall out of my life after loss too, because I've just realized the value in true friendship and true sacrifice of, just being there for someone in the depths of pain and grief. And I only want people in my life that can make space for my authenticity and vulnerability and just genuine state of whatever I'm feeling. What piece of advice would you give your current self early in grief, and that you will make it through? Your heart isn't going to break in half like you thought that it would. That you will create a new, beautiful life. And it's okay that that sounds horrific and disgusting and all of the horrible things in the beginning because you don't want a new life. But unfortunately, that's what you've been handed. And you will see that one day you can make it something special and beautiful again. I just think, take it day by day. I always tell myself baby breaths, not baby breaths, that's a lie, baby steps and deep breaths. And every year brings a different evolution of grief. And I think that it's just so important to love ourselves and everyone around us and our babies and all sorts of things. We love ourselves through it and love them through it, and allow for all of the feelings, the anger and the sadness that comes with all that too. And then the joy, because it's really, really hard in the beginning to allow for the space of joy. And I think that that is what helps you heal. And although I say heal it very lightly, meaning that you're never going to be fixed, you're never going to be the same, but you're going to come out a different person with a different lens on life and a different lease on life. And it's going to be a beautiful thing when you choose for it to be. So that's that. And I hope that you're doing well. Take care.
Thanks, Lauren. I really like what she said about how she can find people that let her have space so she can be authentic.
Yeah.
And that healing doesn't mean that you're fixed. Just means you're changed. Thanks for that.
Very deep. Next, we have Shannon Helm. Shannon, if you'll remember, has a really messy grief story, and I think it's really reached a lot of people who feel like they don't fit quite in the mold of everything was going great and then their person died. So we're really appreciative to Shannon for opening up and telling her story. And let's hear what she has to say about life. Oh, it's episode 57.
It's called Shannon's Shit Show. And if you remember from her episode, if you've listened to it, she has a lot of stuff that happened to her. So if you have a complicated situation, Shannon is your lady to listen to. Here we go.
Hi, this is Shannon. I was on the podcast in February of 2021, I believe. You'll have to excuse my croaky, sick voice, but I am giving an update on my situation, and Anita and Mel have posed some questions that I'm just going to go through and answer with you. How am I coping now? Is my grief more manageable? Absolutely. So it's been 3 years on April 17th since my husband passed away. Side note here, that for some reason the 3rd anniversary was really hard for me. I don't know why. I don't know why that is, but there's just no linear timeline to this whole grief thing. So yes, my grief is much more manageable, but it still surprises me. I guess that's my answer to that question. Because the 3rd anniversary of his death was just a lot harder than the 1st and 2nd. Not sure why that was. What has gotten easier and what has gotten harder, I would have to say that's kind of one and the same thing, which I would say the loneliness, the singleness, I guess. So it's gotten easier in that I'm kind of adapted to the single lifestyle, and I actually kind of enjoy it. And I'm very okay being single and kind of doing things my way for a little bit. But at the same time, the loneliness has sunk in a little bit more. And I guess I feel like maybe I'm getting a little further away from the dating pool and the desire for this dating pool. I'm kind of enjoying the single life. But at the same time, it makes the loneliness more poignant because I realize maybe this is a little bit more permanent than I had anticipated, if that makes sense. So I feel like, looking forward, I have a lot of years left in my life, and I think, it might be kind of lonely if my kids grow up. Right now, I'm very entrenched in child rearing, and so I try not to think too far ahead, but I think, that might be kind of a lonely retirement if I don't have a partner, but I have kind of no desire right now to seek out a partner, if that makes sense. So it's gotten easier and gotten harder. I would say that the singleness, the loneliness would be my answer to that same question, those two same questions. Have I made any big life changes? Absolutely not. In fact, that is the opposite of what I'm going for. I did move shortly after he passed away, but and there was just that flurry of change, and now I try everything in my power to minimize change. So I've had enough big life changes for the rest of my life. And no, I have not waded into the dating pool. That's the next question. Absolutely not. That kind of goes along with the same whole, life changes. I'm not ready for that big of a life change right now. Kind of enjoying the status quo. And have I accomplished anything amazing since we last talked? I have survived another year and a half. And that's pretty amazing. How has my support system changed? In a lot of ways, it's the same. My family and his family, luckily, have been a huge support to me. I find a lot of help and support in them still. I find that as time goes on, I'm finding more people that not necessarily widows, but people who have been through grief and trauma that I'm connecting with. And it's kind of, I'm finding people that are a lot farther ahead in the process than I am. And that's been really helpful to me, because at first I was kind of floundering and just like, what do I do? And my family was like, what do we do to support you? And I had no idea. And now I'm finding people that are a little more seasoned, and it's been really helpful to kind of have their calm perspective and outlook that life goes on. So that's kind of, it's changed and it's not changed. I'm very grateful for the support system that I have. What piece of advice would my current self give your early grief self? That's an interesting question. So one of the most important pieces of advice that I got from a lady who was not a widow, but had been through a lot of trauma, which my story was hinged around quite a bit of trauma. The advice that I got from her was heal, 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 heal. And I got that early on, and I really tried to follow it. And I've tried to just let myself heal and not have huge high expectations for myself, and just realizing the gravity of what we've been through. And death is not a simple thing. It's a big thing, and that's okay. And let myself have the time to heal. So if I were to go back to my early grieving self, I would reiterate that advice and say, take even more time than you think you need. That's what, there is no timeline. Don't look for one. Don't think that there's going to be a timeline, because there's not. I am proof, 3 years out, that it still hits you when you're least expecting it. And just go with the flow and be okay with it. So I would tell myself to be even more okay with it. Because even at the beginning, I was like, okay, I know I need to heal, and I know I need this time, but I fretted about it. And I'm like, well, how much time? Should I go look for a job right now? It's been a year. I should probably go out, and just don't fret. Just give yourself the time you need. That's what I would give my early grief self. because that's the advice I continue to give myself, and I'm heeding it more and more. And I find that as I do let myself heal, the healing goes a little faster and easier if the less resistance I give to it. I'm realizing that I've shared a lot, and it's okay. I think people who heard my podcast, there's a lot there, and that's basically where I still am, dealing with all this, and I don't have any huge words of wisdom except that I keep going, and I'm getting up every day, even when I'm sick, and even when I don't feel like it, and some days I don't get up, and that's okay. Some days I stay in bed, and that's okay too, and it's just a process, and I'm in the middle of that process still, and I'm okay with it. So I hope that this is helpful to some people out there who might still be in the middle, in the thick of it, even after 3 years or 5 years or 10 years, that it's not so poignant. I don't want to be a downer and say, oh, you're not going to get over it. For those newbies out there, just find comfort, I guess, in knowing that there's no rush and it's okay. And life really does go on, and it's okay that it goes on. And it's beautiful, and it's messy, and it's ugly, and it's painful. And it's lovely.
Thank you so much again, Shannon, for updating us.
And you know what? I support you if you don't want to date. If you're like chill with where you are, that's so great. I think that's the best. Whatever you are sitting with, if you're okay with it, that's the place to be.
Next, we're going to hear from Kirsten Robinson. She is from episode 58, and unfortunately for Kirsten, her update is not so great.
Yep. So we'll let you guys just go from here. Here we go.
Hey everyone. So Anita and Mel were gracious enough to ask me to give an update since my last interview with them, which was about a year ago. And this is Kirsten. You can find me on Instagram at unofficially widowed. So since the interview that I did with them last year, a lot has definitely changed in life. Shortly after I did the interview with them, I would say a couple months later, I got into a relationship with somebody who's been a close friend for about 20 years, and I was very ecstatic, very on top of the world. I think I had this mentality of like, yes, finally all my widowed dreams have come true, right? Finding a solid chapter 2. So I was very excited about that. And then unfortunately, in May of 2022, my partner did die by suicide. And so now I am a second time unofficially widowed woman, as I'd say. Both of my partners were unmarried. I wasn't married to them. And, the ladies just wanted me to kind of talk about maybe some of the similarities, some of the differences, and what it's been like experiencing this a second time. Obviously, this did just happen a few months ago, so it still is really fresh. And, who's to say that in 3 months from now or 6 months from now or, a couple years from now, my viewpoints may change. But just sort of in this season, these are some of the things that I have kind of pointed out. I think one of the things that has been easier going through this a second time was just allowing myself to really grieve and cry and be sad and feel the things that I needed to feel. I think the first time this happened to me, grief was such a new experience and, really mind-boggling. And it is every time, but, the second time I knew what the feelings were going to be in some sense. And there have been some feelings that are very different. Having a loved one die by suicide does bring on a whole nother basket of stuff that, I'm really trying to still unpack, but just allowing myself, giving myself that permission to openly grieve and know how healthy and helpful that has been something that, I've noticed this time. The second thing that was a little more helpful this time was, they talk about when your person dies, right? Everyone really rallies around you immediately after, whether that's monetary gifts, food, cards, letters, showing up, going to the funeral, right? And then after that, everyone disperses back into their own life when this still is your real life. And so the first time that happened to me was very painful, even though I had a fellow widowed friend who forewarned me about it, which I'm really glad she did because that helped. But going through this the second time, yes, it's still painful, right? Yes, it still hurts to know, hey, hello, this is still my reality and I'm still flailing around while everyone goes back to normal. But I was prepared for it and I had the awareness of it, so it didn't sting quite as much. So that was one thing that was really helpful too. And then just a couple of differences. So, just because you've lost somebody, we are not automatically these experts on grief, right? Every relationship is as individual, as that love is. And so, of course, every loss is going to be, individual and painful in its own ways too. And I'm sorry, I'm just drinking my coffee if that sentence didn't make sense, but I think all my grievers know what I'm getting at. And so, just because I've been through one loss, I really have to face the fact that hey, yes, something tragic happened. And guess what? Other tragic things are going to happen too. This doesn't make me immune from, other losses and other tragic things. And, sometimes that reality can be a blessing and sometimes it can be really, really scary to face that and to realize, there are going to be additional tragedies. And so I think trying to reconcile that is something that, will take a lot of work. Another thing that's been even more important going through this a second time is having support from other grievers. That has been crucial to my survival these past 3 months. I think, and I don't know if I'm just maybe imposing this viewpoint on myself, but sometimes when you've gone through this a second time, people look at you a little different and a little shocked and a little like, oh my gosh, again, right? And that can be hard and you can feel a little judged and, even though it's not your fault and you have nothing to do with it, right? You still just feel like, ugh, again. And so your loved ones can do what they can do, but it truly, truly takes a support of grievers and people who get it to really be there. And so I've been blessed. The last 12 weeks, I've participated in 2 different support groups. I did participate in one that was geared toward survivors of suicide loss and another one that was for partners and spouses. And so those 2 have been very beneficial for me, just being able to be in community with those who understand and maybe not have such high expectations on non-grievers in my life. And then I think the final thing that I would say that's been a little harder this time is just sort of trying to, figure out how to reintegrate my grief just into the world and what that's going to look like moving forward. I had shared this in my group the other day because we were sort of talking about that topic, and I said, after my first partner died, I had an infant and I was very much in survival mode and I threw myself into school and, I had to go get a degree and a big girl job and be the sole provider, right? And so that's where all of my, not just my focus, but that's where my identity was. And I could place that somewhere, right? And so now having the veil sort of, ripped off and the rug pulled from under my feet again, that's going to be difficult. My beautiful boy, he's 10 and more independent, right? And so it's kind of figuring out, what does my life look like from here? And where does my identity sort of shift? And so I think that's going to be the next biggest part of the journey. And, hopefully in another year, I'll have something to share on that. But thank you guys for giving me a space to talk. And I appreciate you all and sending love to all my fellow grievers. Thanks, guys.
Thank you so much, Kirsten. We just want to send our love and hugs to you for all the stuff that you're dealing with now on top of what you were dealing with before.
Yes, I think it's really important that she said how we're not immune from bad things to happen.
Which
even
is
though
such a
we've
ripoff.
I know. And that the support from other grievers has been really helpful. So sending hugs to you, Kirsten, and thank you for passing on some words of wisdom even in the time of your own struggles.
Next, we're going to hear from one of our favorite humans on the planet. That's Melissa Pierce. Melissa has been in the widow game a little while, and she's been doing some really amazing things with her grief and paying it forward and helping other widows.
Yes, we love her so much. And here she is.
Hey, it's Melissa Pierce from Filled with Gold. I was on Anita and Mel's Widow We Do Now podcast, I think about a year ago. And I was happy to be a guest on their show and talk about my widow experience. I'm 11 years out now. I raised my kids. I was a solo parent. My kids were 10 and 13 when my husband Dave died. And I have to say, my two kids are young adults doing the young adulting thing. I'm really, really proud of them. I have to pat myself on the back. I made some really, really big decisions for when my oldest was moving through some difficulties and challenges. And yeah, I mean, my kids are doing good. And that's really, I'm really thankful and grateful for that, because I know you solo parents out there, solo parenting is not for wimps. This is a really, really hard thing that you're doing. And if I could tell you anything, you're doing the best you can. You're doing a great job. Reach out. There's a lot of really good parenting resources out there now. I can't say there was a ton of them 10, 11 years ago, but there's just more access to resources. So I don't really know what else to say, but if I had to give you any advice, or even my current self giving my past self advice, would just be to really take good care of yourself. This is such a difficult, challenging, overwhelming time, and you just have to be so kind to yourself. You're moving through some really hard things. So however you can treat yourself physically, emotionally, mentally well, I mean, if you could just be so extra kind to yourself, please do that. And I don't know, my hearts go out to you. I love you all.
See, isn't she so great? We love you, Melissa.
Next, we're going to hear from Kirsten Stromberg Clausen. That wasn't her name when we recorded with her, so that will tell you some things. And here we go.
It's been a little over a year since I did my podcast with What Do We Do Now, and a lot has changed in my life. I would say that grief is easier to bear, but still ever present. I had a moment several months ago where I thought very deeply about what I wanted my late husband's legacy to be left behind by me. And I had a realization that I didn't want that legacy to be that his death destroyed me, and that his death made me a sadder person, or a less helpful person, or a less kind person, or a less motivated person. Instead, I wanted his legacy to be that he blessed and impacted my life so much that I kept living to honor him. And so one of the ways that I did that was I decided to move forward and start dating. And pretty quickly after getting into the dating pool, I met someone, and he is a widower who lost his wife to cancer. And we hit it off, and we got married in January. So we have blended our lives together. And while there have been positives and negatives of the experience, I have to say that the experience is overall positive, especially marrying a widower, because we get it. We understand each other. We understand the trials and the emotions attached to an old jacket or a piece of decor that his late wife picked out. It's like having a grief buddy, honestly. It's like having someone who understands where I am and where I'm coming from, that is as close to me and my experience as possible. However, I will say getting married again has definitely changed my support system. My in-laws were not supportive of me moving forward, so they have really pulled away from my life, which is very, very hard for me. I wish that I
wish that our relationship still existed. I wish that they could see this as an addition to their family instead of a subtraction. But also, I think people think that because I've been remarried, it means that I'm no longer sad, or I no longer grieve my late husband, or I'm over it. And that could not be further from the truth. I have grief days and triggers, as does my current husband who lost his wife. I wake up on anniversary mornings and I cry and I miss my late husband. And I think people think, well, you're remarried, you should not be feeling this way, but it couldn't be further from the truth. The grief is still present, but it is easier to manage. And I think it's probably easier to manage because I have someone in my life now who understands to an incredible level what I'm feeling and why I'm feeling that way.
Thank you, Kirsten. Now, what you guys don't know, because it's, again, been a while since we collected these and got them together, is that Kirsten married one of our other guests, Jason Clausen. He's been on the podcast. And they had a baby.
Like 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
Yes, cute Maisie is her name, and that's been a really special and miraculous situation for them. So congratulations to the two of them.
And you know what, Kirsten? I think it's really important that you said you didn't want the legacy for Cody to be that his death destroyed you, and that you continued to move forward, even though it's hard. And I know that you mentioned it's even hard being married, like dealing with the things still. It's like life goes on and it's still hard. So good job. Keep going. High five.
All right, next we've got Peter Rukavina. He's from episode 66. Peter, we teased so much about being from Anne of Green Gables town. So let's hear what Peter has to say about life now.
And you guys might like this because it might feel soothing because Peter recorded this at the ocean. So enjoy these nice rolling waves as you listen to Peter.
Hi there, it's Peter Rukavina. It's a beautiful sunny day and I'm sitting by the ocean in Prince Edward Island. I'm about 20 feet away from waves that I'm sure you can hear. There's a lobster boat in the distance. I can see Nova Scotia if I squint. It's a beautiful time and I'm happy, which is not something that maybe I anticipated being able to say when we recorded my episode back in April of 2021. A lot has happened since then. I started to learn how to ride horses. I thought I was going for one lesson, but I did the one lesson and I liked it, and they asked me when I was coming back, and so I booked a lesson for 2 weeks later, and I've been going ever since. And that's been a profound learning experience that I have loved deeply. In November of last year, I started going to improv classes, another thing that took me way out of my comfort zone. I kept going to those too, and I've fallen in love with improv and kind of the improv approach to life. And then I started dating. I had gone on a couple of dates when we recorded our episode. I'd been on a few more with different people over the course of 2021. Nothing really took, but I learned a lot. And then in 2021, in December, I met Lisa, and Lisa and I have been together ever since. And it's great. I didn't think that it was possible to be in love at this point. I was afraid of being in love at this point, but I am. Lisa has an 11-year-old daughter. Getting to know her has been an unexpected delight. Lisa getting to know my 21-year-old daughter has been an unexpected delight. It's all not been without its challenges, but I truly do feel like I'm starting a new chapter of my life with a new enthusiasm. Grief is not over. I don't think it ever will be over. Coming to terms with what my life looks like now and how it works and what Lisa's relationship with my daughter is, those are all things I've spent a lot of time kind of repatriating the space that I shared with Catherine and finding new places for the things that she used over her career as an artist, and that's a process that is almost at an end. But I do feel like I'm looking forward more than I'm looking back, and I am happy about that. It's taken a lot of work. I tried to power through grief in the months after Catherine died in 2020. That didn't work, and the key for me was just figuring out how to ask for help. And really admitting that I needed help took me halfway there. So I found a psychologist, I found a therapist, I found a grief support group. And then, I took myself out of my comfort zone on horses and on stage and on Bumble. And it paid off. So I'm proud of myself. I truly didn't think I would be here at this point, just a little more than 2 years later. Grief is still a thing. It always will be a thing, but so is joy, and so is happiness, and so is the future.
Okay, thanks, Peter. We are so glad that things are going okay, and thank you so much for your update.
Next, we're going to listen to Sarah Shellenberger. Sarah, thanks so much for sending your update. She was from episode 68. If you remember, Sarah went through IVF after her husband died, and she has continued through that process, and we'll hear a little bit about that now.
Hey guys, it's Sarah Shellenberger. I love that you're doing these updates, so I'm excited to go through and listen to other people's as well. As far as things that have changed, how I'm doing, I would say there have been a lot of changes. When we first interviewed, it had been just a little over a year since Scott had died. And so everything was still just really fresh. I was also super pregnant. And so there was just a lot going on at that time. But Hayes, our little boy, just turned a year a couple weeks ago. And I think having him has actually made my grief lighter in a lot of ways. But it's also brought on a new layer of grief that I didn't know or hadn't experienced before having Hayes. I think just missing having a partner, missing having, my husband here raising our child together. And now my heart is also just breaking for Hayes. And before it was just breaking for, myself and our families. But so I think that having Hayes has brought so much joy to my life and definitely made a lot of the grief feel a little bit lighter. But it's also definitely introduced new types of grief that I wasn't necessarily expecting. Let's see, as far as bigger updates, so Scott and I were going through IVF when he had unexpectedly passed away, and we were doing our second round, right when he died. And so 1 week before he died, we went through our second egg retrieval and all of that, and actually had an embryo that was created a week before he died that's been just frozen. And so I am going back in a month to go get our second embryo and hopefully be pregnant again, which just stirs up a lot of emotions. And, it's super overwhelming just being a single mom. I have great support from his parents and my parents. My parents actually moved to Oklahoma to help out. And my mom still basically lives with me, and which is just a godsend. But, it's still just super hard not having Scott here. So I'm really, really excited and anxious and hopeful that this pregnancy will work out, and that I'll have a chance to have our second child, which is just mind blowing. But at the same time, it's overwhelming already just with one. So I'm, a little bit scared about what would happen if the pregnancy did work, but I'm definitely praying that it works, and would be really, really devastated if it didn't. So that's kind of the biggest thing that I've got going on right now as far as updates. Have not waded into the dating pool. I think for me, my situation is just super unique. So being pregnant 6 months after he died because of IVF, and, you know, just having like a new baby, that was not of interest to me. And the last few months I've been more ready for it, and it is something that I have kind of entertained, but knowing that I was getting ready to go through IVF again and hopefully be pregnant one more time, I just figured I need to kind of see this through and see what's going to happen here before I would kind of put myself out there. But I don't know. Honestly, the whole situation, like the whole dating thing, it's weighing on my mind pretty heavily, and it's kind of stressing me out. So I'm definitely to the point where I've realized that I don't want to be alone for the rest of my life. I have way too many years ahead of me, and I want my babies to have a father figure in their life as well. But the whole, like, where do I even find somebody is just super overwhelming for me. And, you know, again, finding somebody that understands, like, there's no off weekends, there's no off holidays. They would be a full-time parent to my children. You know, it just complicates things. And I think, like, Scott set the bar so high for what I would be looking for in a guy. And it's just really hard for me to imagine finding somebody that would be as good as him. So I don't know. That's kind of what's overwhelming me right now. You know, just to kind of close out, I would say the advice that I would give to my early grieving self, I guess, would just be to kind of hang on. I honestly did not believe that the day would ever come that I would smile again, that I would laugh again. I honestly thought that I would never experience joy ever again. And I do have joy again, and I do smile, and I do laugh, and I do cry all the time and miss Scott every single day. But thankfully, one of the biggest lessons I've learned throughout all of this is that grief and joy can coexist. And I think that holding on to that I guess I would just encourage anyone that's going through the very early stages to just kind of hold on to that, because even though people tell you that you will laugh again, things will get a little bit lighter, I definitely didn't believe them. But it's true, and it does get lighter, and the pain does become a little bit more manageable. So, well, thanks again, guys, for doing this update, and I hope everybody else is doing all right.
You are so right, Sarah, that grief and joy can coexist. And Sarah's had an interesting experience because she was a childless widow, and now she has a child, but was a widow.
Yeah.
So she was both. Is. And I don't know. What are words? I don't know.
Thank you so much, Sarah, for sending in your update. And thank you so much for all of the people who have sent in their updates. I know that our listeners really like to hear from them. It's kind of hard to track these guys down and get them sometimes. So we hope that we will be able to bring you more updates from some of our other guests in a future episode as well.
Yeah. So thanks, everybody. We hope that you have found these episodes helpful and that there's something that you can relate with in some of them or all of them. Thanks for joining us, guys. We hope that this is a start to a decent, fingers crossed, new year, and that if you need some extra support, you can find it in your community or in the Widow Wives Club on Facebook. So join us there. Remember, that's where you go to vent or to share wins or whatever. We're there for you.
Yeah, and there are people in all stages of grief in there. There are people who have been widowed for many, many years and people who have been widowed for just a few days. It's a great place to be no matter where you are right now. Nobody expects you to be anyway except for how you are.
Okay, well, Anita, I hope that you've made it back from your vacation okay and survived. And I guess we'll know by the time this comes out, right?
No, because I'll be gone when it comes out.
Wait, what day do you get back?
The 12th.
Oh, guys. Okay. When this comes out, the mystery continues.
We won't know if I've been shipwrecked or marooned or stuck at sea or something like that. My 9-year-old, all he has reference to is the Titanic. So when I told him on Christmas, he's like, "Are we going to sink?" And I'm like, "No."
Oh.
"Are we going to hit an iceberg?" I'm like, "We're going to be in the Caribbean. We'll be okay." The Caribbean, whatever.
I mean, I think it's both. It's whatever you want.
Yeah. Okay.
Right?
I was like, no, there's no icebergs there at all for sure.
No, the way to say
Yeah,
the word. I know there's no iceberg. Okay, I get it now. I get it. Okay. Wow. Widow brain never leaves. Okay, everyone. Stay safe, and we'll see you next week.
I'm Anita.
I'm Mel.
And we're just two young widows trying to figure out widow.
We do now. This is my favorite thing to discuss with you.
Tell me, what is it?
One of my favorite things. I do enjoy tacos and cheese and dogs. This is about how you cannot pay hundreds and hundreds of dollars for a phone plan, especially when you're a widow, your person is dead, you might have kids, you might need another option, and you just want your phone to work, you want unlimited texting and service, and you want it to be like $25 a month.
It blows my mind that they have plans that start at $15 a month. That is so cheap. And the cool thing is it uses other 5G networks, and so you don't have to pay extra for that, and you still get great service.
Yep, Anita and I have traveled all over, and I have used my phone. So I highly recommend it, and my mom's even on it. When my dad died, we put his phone down to the cheapest plan, which is $15 a month. And I think my mom's on the $20 a month plan, and it's so worth it. It's so much cheaper than what we were all paying before. So I highly recommend it if you're on a budget or not. Who cares? Ryan Reynolds is in charge of the company, and they send you free stickers with Ryan Reynolds temporary tattoos. It's kind of the best. So if somebody wants to sign up, what can they do, Anita?
Go to trymintmobile.com/WWDN. Seriously, you guys. Such a great idea. Save yourself some money.
And if you're worried about losing data or having any changes with your phone, not going to happen. They walk you through it. Everything's fine. It's the easiest process of all time. Again, that's
trymintmobile.com/WWDN.